everyone, welcome back to another episode here with the Realms Commune. We have a new guest here joining us who wasn't able to make it here last time because of various reasons. But with that, again, welcome back. I am Lalo, again, a therapist by trade, and I will let everybody else do their introduction.
Hi, welcome back, everyone. My name is Laramie, and I am also a social worker.
Hello, my name is Mario, and welcome to another episode. I'm just someone who is on the side of the truth. I am a big believer of the paranormal, but I can also be skeptical on some things. So I'm here to find out what's out there.
Hi everyone and welcome back. I'm Gaia. I am a screenwriter. I believe in the supernatural, but I can also be skeptical about certain things. So let's see what the new episode will bring us.
Hello, and I am Cesar. I welcome to a new episode today. I'm here just to, provide some input here and there. I also do believe in the supernatural, but I'm kind of on the fence about it. So maybe make me a believer, make me, But yeah, hope you all enjoy this.
All right.
Right.
So, with that being said, today the commune will investigate the subject of haunted houses or haunted apartments and such. Basically, new living space. And so, with that, we will let Laramie start with some of the lore behind it.
All right, so yes, so we received a story about a haunted apartment. So this episode, we're going to talk about haunted buildings, namely focusing on the resident side. So why might a residence be haunted? So there's many reasons why. So there's violent or untimely deaths like murder, suicide, a fatal accident occurred on the premise. So basically the ghosts wanting closure, unfinished business, or they don't know they're dead. That happens quite a lot. Curses or evil acts. There's massacres, satanic rituals, mass graves of bodies that were not provided proper rest or given their last rites. Or somebody was practicing the dark arts, black magic, and put a curse on the space. Restless spirits with unfinished business. These are people who have passed naturally, either from old age or their death was expected, but they just still have unfinished business. And then lastly, disturbed burial grounds. So the building where the resident was built on a sacred burial ground. There's residual hauntings. These are ones that are not aware or interactive. They repeat the same actions. It's like a movie, a little scene in a movie, like a recording. In the Japanese culture, they're actually known as yurei. There's intelligent hauntings, and these are the ones that are aware of their surroundings. They respond to people and voices and are often associated with unfinished business or strong emotional ties. Then you have your shadow figures, which we covered last week. You have child spirits. These are usually playful, shy, tend not to be harmful. Guardians or protective spirits. These tend to be said to watch over the family. A lot of people have reported, like if they have a loved one that just recently passed, they feel them around and they protect them. Then there's the vengeful, angry spirits. These are usually associated with intense emotions or injustice. What do you guys think? Or
Well, this is only kind of assuming that you believe in
yeah,
the supernatural lore, of things. But yeah, I mean, I think historically, again, across different cultures, people have different reasons for kind of believing different things. A little bit later on, we'll talk about some of the other causes because at the end of the day, whenever you move into a new place, it's a lot of stress. It's a whole new environment, whole new layout, and basically it's like a free ticket for your mind to start kind of making up stuff.
So this whole topic about the haunted houses is a very interesting one, and something that really catches my attention to all of this is a poltergeist. Poltergeist is something that apparently is just the energy that makes things around the house move, which, to me, prove that, how are objects moving inside the house just with the energy of somebody, which, in this time, in this kind of situations of poltergeist, which is still very paranormal to me. Um, and other things is that, the spirits that do stay behind and do um, haunt a house, or, in some instances, want to stay attached to what they left behind. I believe that, some people do stay behind because they just don't want to detach of what they left here, which is sad.
Let's also say that humankind is historically terrified of what they don't know. And so, why should it be different for the dead? Maybe some of them, if they stay here, maybe it's because they are scared of what is waiting for them on the other side. In Italy, we are not completely sold into the haunted houses. So Italy is a very old country. We have buildings built over different sacred temples and cemeteries of different culture, even before the Roman Empire. So usually in Italy, when we talk about haunted mansions and houses, it's because there is a cemetery. And historically, one of our most famous haunted places is the story of Azzurrina. Azzurrina was the daughter of the Duke of Urbino, and she was born an albino. And that alone would be reason for her to be killed. And sadly, that's probably what happened to her. The legend wants that she was playing one day in the castle, and her mother heard her scream. And when she went looking for her, she couldn't find the child. But since that day, sometimes in the Palace of Urbino, people can hear a ball moving without reasons and the scream of a child.
Oh, wow.
So our haunted places are all related to something that happened that was very tragic, or spirits that were disturbed in their place of rest.
That's really interesting because in my research they were talking about that there's different types of like hauntings and reasons for it, and one of them is for known for like moral transgressions and severe human cruelty. And I found that in France and Italy that tends to be more with the older buildings because there a lot of it is associated with that betrayal, imprisonment, executions, and that hauntings are actually not so much about the ghost but more about the human behavior that happened there that has kind of like stained the land. And that's why it tends to be more the residual hauntings.
Yes, that, as I said, Italy
Yeah.
is a very old country and we
Mm-hmm.
have very old buildings because we don't destroy them to build them anew. So we have buildings that literally witness the passing of centuries. And so it is very possible the energy of
Yeah.
whatever kind we want to say that energy is, it can stay behind. I mean, everything around us is made of energy, be that electrical, be that the sunlight. So why not something that belongs to the past? Sorry.
I was actually gonna ask, so what makes this energy like good or bad? Like, is it trying to like warn the individual from the house, like, or is it trying to just like scare it off? Like, what is there
So
anything to that, or is it just because it's trapped?
So,
so that's kind of like what a lot of people don't know, and what we try to figure out is, when people are felt that their place is haunted, There's some schools of thoughts that the ghost is just trying to get attention, that it's maybe there, it wants to stay and it wants to be part of the family. It wants to help out. And then there is some where the ghost or the spirit feels so attached to the place that no one deserves to live there. That it's its own space, and that by a family moving in, it's basically trespassing. And unless that spirit is either convinced to move on by a medium or a psychic, or perhaps business gets finished. It's so really it depends. That's why a lot of people, you have researched the history of the house, because if there was something really bad that happened there, if it was a murder, then yeah, that spirit might be a little bit more aggressive just because it's angry, especially if the killer wasn't caught. And so when living with a spirit, you have to figure out, okay, are we going to figure out how to work with this ghost? Are we going to try to get the house cleansed of it? Or are we just going to give the ghost a space and be like, all right, you win, we're out?
So does it ever come to the point to where like they're harmful towards the individuals? So
Oh,
like
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
does it go to like the extent of like death?
Now, don't be fooled um, when it comes to haunted houses. Now, a ghost can't hurt you.
Yeah,
A
okay.
ghost will you can hear it.
Hmm.
You can maybe mostly hear it. You might be able to see it now.
Well,
With
aren't
that being
poltergeist
said,
ghosts?
Yeah,
no,
poltergeists are.
poltergeist is just
Poltergeist
energy.
is just
See now,
like movements though, right? Like
Yeah, but
yeah.
that
So
can
that's
hurt
that's
you.
the thing.
But the thing is
Now
that
everybody, yeah,
The
everybody has that capability of doing things that we don't know. Now, with that being said, ghosts, like I said before, as far as I know, ghosts cannot hurt you. Then again, houses don't just get haunted by ghosts. Now, there's also something called a infestation. Now, if your house gets infested by a demon, now those are the ones you have to be aware of. Now, what are the signs, you might ask? What should I be looking for? Because if you see if you see a glass all of a sudden moving or falling in the ground, are you going to call an exorcist right away, or who are you going to call, right? I
Ghostbusters.
mean,
I don't know, man. Maybe I would.
Ghostbusters, exactly.
Dodge.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
It could be a series of things, depending of is there something going on in your house that's causing that such energy? Are you going through a situation where I'm the one causing these things, or somebody in my house that could be doing that? Now, is this a new house? Did something happen here? Have I heard anything before? Those are the little things you have to keep in mind, when you're trying to evaluate what kind of thing am I dealing with, and then you know start deducting things and see where the whole thing is coming from. I mean, there have been really nice stories of nice ghosts that come over and give you a message, a good message. Some of them even save you from a catastrophic event or something like that.
Oh yeah,
You
I've
know?
heard of some that like lead you to treasure and whatnot.
Yeah.
And it'll probably be its own topic, I'm sure, in another story as to like what we really believe ghosts to be, right?
Hmm.
And whether or not, because some people, some part of religions, right, are all part of, as soon as you die, you either go a place or something else. But the idea with ghosts is that they have unfinished business, right? And so basically, the long story short of why I've seen so many stories of houses get haunted is because the environment changes, particularly like older buildings, right? Ghosts and whatnot, they like familiarity. They like to kind of just live in the same place kind of forever. So when you go, you paint a new room, right? You basically mess up the space where they're living. I mean, it would really almost be like if a stranger just came in and you're just chilling there and just started, putting like new posters or, moving the furniture out of your house. It'd be like, what the heck, right?
So, with that, in general, yes, ghosts tend to not be harmful, tend to not really want to hurt you, but there have been instances where, yes, a ghost can actually cause harm. And these are more of that, it has to be a very old ghost or with a very strong. So there have been witness of reports of being pushed down steps by a mysterious force. There have been some where they've had objects thrown at them. And a lot of times, though, what ghosts will tend to do is they can actually, they more impact health because ghosts are basically energy. And in order to really even materialize to become a parent, they have to take a lot of energy. That's why if you watch the TV shows or the movies, cameras are always dying, the lights go out, cold spots because all the heat is being sucked out of the air for the ghosts to give the ghosts more power. Hauntings tend to be more active when it rains because that's natural energy. So if a ghost or a spirit really wants to communicate, it will find a way. And even sometimes an aggressive push may not be like, it may feel aggressive, but it may not be aggressive. It could just be the ghost's way of saying, hey, I'm here, listen to me, like, I want to communicate. Um, but it's also possible that it could be something else entirely. And evil demonic entities will sometimes play on as a ghost, especially a child ghost or an innocent ghost, because it wants you to communicate with it. And yes, they might tell you they have someone finish business or something. More often than not, it's going to be something else entirely that's playing on you so that it can be let into the environment. So, and that's when we are going back to the signs. If you tend to be, if you wake up and you have scratches or bruises on you, that, especially the scratches of like a three, that tends to be more in the demonic realm. Um,
So yeah, I think that at the same time, right, a lot of this stuff could just be stress again, right? Like you can almost come to a lot of these conclusions basically kind of the same way.
what is interesting is that every culture, while we all have the whole haunted house trope, cliche story, it's all viewed differently. So it's going to be different in older countries. They're going to have more of a history. So in Japan, they actually, if there are properties that have a murder, suicide, or a death has occurred, they actually label it as an incident property, basically to alert the person that might want to occupy it, hey, you need to do some kind of ritual cleansing in this place before you move in. Um,
Which fun enough, we were talking about this the other day, and we discovered that in the U.S., the only state that is required by law to tell you somebody has died in your house is California, and that has like a 3 year statute of limitation. Everywhere
Yeah.
else, you can ask the real estate agent, and they can't lie to you, but they also don't have to tell you. What is the belief in Mexico, Mario? Do you remember? So, for what I remember, most of the time anything kind of moves or anything like that, right? And it's like it's a chamuco, right? It's the boogeyman or the devil
Yeah,
himself. So not too much in
man,
between of like ghosts or anything.
it all goes, it all goes back to the whole thing of if anything paranormal is happening, blame it on the devil because who else are you gonna blame it on, right? Anything bad happens, it's his fault. But like you said, I mean, there are some ghosts that might scare you a little bit more than what they should be allowed to. Now, I've always said a rule of thumb is if you see a child ghost, get away from there. Child ghosts don't exist. That is a demon. So
How it goes would
that goes
exist.
for everybody.
Is there like a cutoff?
But yeah, no, it's
I don't know about
the
that.
what?
Is there like a cutoff age for that? For
Cut off
Mm,
age.
Uh,
no,
no,
not
you
exactly.
look at it and you see that it's a child.
So just
Yeah, I
like a
mean,
little,
you'll
little
see it if it's a child. And
Mhm.
now a child, by definition, is somebody who's very innocent,
Right.
right? So you look at that person who appears in front of you and you say, yeah, no, that's definitely a child. It's like putting an elephant in front of you. You'll know it's an elephant. So
Mhm.
again, you will see that ghost in front of you and you're gonna be like, yeah, no, I'm out of here.
Well, I
Please.
think I
Yeah.
remember though, like,
In a in in a culture that is based on Christianity, be that Protestant, Catholics, even Orthodox, um, children don't linger because their soul goes straight to heaven. Because they are guilty of no sins, just the original one, like everyone else in
Mhm.
humanity, but they didn't commit any sin for which they could be trapped or they could have a reason to stay.
Well,
So
though,
yeah, no, every time you see, even in movies, every time you see a child in an haunted place, is never a child. Is not even a ghost. Is almost 100% of times is a demon. You want to help a child. If a child is alone in a dark place, you want to help the child. But if the child is not a child, you are more or less screwed.
I think
Mhm.
I remember though, like my grandma once saying that she thought she heard a baby crying. So I don't know, that's just like residual energy, right? But I've heard so many stories of people just saying that they hear like a kid crying or a baby like crying or whatnot, right? But it doesn't go further than that. It doesn't like haunt them. Yeah, I mean, there's I think it's when the little kid starts talking to you,
Mm-hmm.
then that's where it gets kind of
Because I think you could have a
uh
little kid with a residual, like you could have, that residual kind of thing of maybe a kid saying, mommy, daddy, just kind of over and over again.
hmm.
But, that is actually a really good point that, kids wouldn't linger because they're just so innocent.
I think psychologically we just want answers, right? So if the shoe
Don't we
fits,
all?
I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. So what does that make like? Have you guys ever had that experience where like like you hear your name being called, but and then you
Yes.
ask around and is there you ask and they're like, no, we didn't call your name.
So
It,
intelligence.
Well,
That's kind of what it comes down to, whether or not it's like purposeful, right? So residual energy, right, is basically just like something on repeat, right? But if you have somebody saying like, like your name or something like that, right, then it's actively communicating with you.
And the thing is that when if you hear something saying your name, and I've heard a lot of this from like the indigenous population, is don't respond, because it could be something trying to get your attention, communicate with you, and by responding, you're acknowledging it. So especially if like you're outside in like woods, you hear somebody call your name, try not to respond or be very cautious about, oh, am I out here with somebody that could actually be calling my name? Just because that is a way entities will lure you in. I believe it's the Wendigo that mimics voices of loved ones to try and lure you in to cause you harm. So some people will say if you hear your name called for no reason, I think some of it could just be also your brain um firing synapses and such too. So
yeah, that's the thing. If you think you're really hearing things and you really want to dig into it, are you hearing them in your house? Are you hearing them somewhere that's happening very often? Try to record it. If it records, then it's something that's trying to get your attention. If it doesn't record, more than likely it's in your mind because your mind can actually play some very weird tricks on you sometimes.
So why don't
And
we
I'm sure a lot of us heard a lot of those stories on his feel the work.
Yeah, why don't
Yeah.
we go ahead and just kind of jump into the story? Because a lot of these themes I feel like kind of keep on repeating. So I'll let Laramie start with a real experience part of it.
So this was given to us by a viewer. Names have been changed. And so all right, so the story of the haunted apartment. When Jess and I'm Alex, signed a lease on the new apartment, we were 28 and 26, and it felt like a fresh chapter. It was an oldish building that had been recently renovated, sunny rooms, hardwood floors, and the promise of starting over. We also brought along our orange tabby Milo, who had been my shadow since college. We joked about finally having a place where the pipes didn't bang and the electricals didn't sound like it was about to explode. It was 2022, and the new season of Stranger Things had come out, so we assembled furniture while listening to Demogorgons roar from the TV. The only thing that gave me pause was a faint, musty smell in the stairwell, like damp earth. It clung on no matter how many bottles of Febreze I used. The first week passed in a blur of boxes from IKEA assemblies and late night episodes of that show. Every night we collapsed into bed exhausted but content to sleep in our own place. Then, around 3 in the morning, on our seventh night, I woke to the sound of dripping water. It seemed like it was coming from somewhere in the kitchen. Still half asleep, I assumed I'd left the faucet slightly on. I padded to the sink, but the faucet was dry. The drip came from the ceiling. I stood there for a while trying to listen to where it was coming from. Drip, pause, drip. Just as I began to rationalize that maybe it was condensation from an upstairs tenant, the sound stopped. Our cat Milo slept through it all, curled up at our feet, and I remember feeling relieved that he seemed oblivious. I was concerned there might be some expensive plumbing issues. I mentioned it the next morning, and Jess seemed confused. I didn't hear anything, she said. We chalked it up to settling pipes. But that night, the dripping returned. Again, around 3 a.m. Again, as soon as I stood in the kitchen, it stopped. This time I lay awake, listening to the old building creak. The drip wasn't loud, but it was creepy because it was mostly annoying. Within a week, other small things joined the drip. Our keys would appear in odd places. I would set them by the front door and find them in the kitchen on the kitchen table, Jess swearing to not touching them. Other things, like a chair at the breakfast counter, began being slightly out of place, like and tilted to the side. Yes, I am one of those people that pays attention to things like that. Once I woke to the sound of the bedroom door softly clicking shut. I shot upright, heart pounding, and saw the door slowly swing to a stop. There was no draft. Jess slept soundly beside me. The room was thick with the same damp smell, stronger than ever. As the days wore on, the occurrences grew bolder. Every night at exactly 3:22, the drip started. My sleep inconsistent, just waiting to see what would happen that night. Milo, on one of the nights, kept looking at a corner in the ceiling and making a meowing cry. A week after we noticed it, the drip was accompanied by a soft tapping on the walls, knocks on the door. I began leaving our phones open to record in case I caught something. Jess thought I was crazy and needed to lay off the horror movies. Mostly our phones captures myself snoring and Milo doing cat things, but once there was a low whisper, almost a voice, saying our names and what sounded like a long hell. When we played it back, Jess was shocked. She wanted to believe the voice was interference, but I could see doubt in her eyes. Jess said that she has things happen to her and keep getting cold chills. Then various small things start happening, moving like her water bottle moving. It was only a few inches, so it didn't want to make it like it was anything, but it felt something wanted us to notice it. At first, we didn't tell anyone. You always worry people will think you are imagining things, but the strain started to show. I was jumpy. Jess began sleeping with the lamp on. Finally, over dinner one night, we invited our friend Marcus over. Marcus is a computer engineer, the kind of guy who believes there's a rational explanation for everything. We figured an outside witness would either reassure us or at least share the experience. So, what do you think so far about this?
The
It's
timing is interesting. The timing is very interesting, but it's the cat that got my attention. I don't know what's going on, but if it was something supernatural, since the beginning, the cat would have known. cats are very sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
So the timing is very interesting because it's 3:22, is always around 3 in the morning. And but as I said, it could also have a scientific explanation, be that the liver, again, as I said in the first episode.
Do you
So
guys know
I
what
want to know
happens?
what's going on.
Do you guys know what happens to your brain when you stay awake really more than like 24 hours?
Yes,
Okay,
for
so
I'm
personal
sure
experience.
I'm sure Gaia knows about that.
yeah,
It's
so
just
Yep.
it's kind of compared equivalent to like being drunk. The longer you go without sleep, the more that you go to where you're almost like more drunk. And kind of the way that it works cognitively is that it's almost like if you have a full view of the picture and it just starts getting narrower and narrower to where you can only
Yes.
see like a certain thing, right? So what I'm hearing so far, right, is that this person, right, woke up for whatever reason, right? And it's already kind of stressed. It's already kind of, you know, it has fear kind of ignited that adrenaline going. And now they're not getting enough sleep. So, just something to keep in mind. It's that consistency of like, well, at this point, he's almost more susceptible to feel certain things because he's not at the best physiological.
And it also feels like that is feeding its own paranoia,
Hmm.
because the fewer you sleep, the more paranoid you become. The more paranoid you become, you fixate on things that may be there, but may also not be there. So I really want to know what's going on.
All right. Okay. So, where we left them off, they invited their friend Marcus over, who was a non believer. Let's see what happens. We told Marcus about the drip and the key misplacement, and he smiled. Old building, expansion and contraction. You all are stressed out with the new job in a new area, he's told us. He agreed to stay over and promised to keep an open mind. At 3:22 a.m., the drip started. Marcus smirked and whispered, "There it is." Then the sound shifted. The drip grew louder, closer, like water hitting a metal pot beside the bed. We all sat up. Suddenly, the chair in the corner scraped against the floor. Moving a few inches, a shadow cut across the room. Marcus's smirk vanished. He whispered, "Did you see that?" From that night on, there was no skeptic left in the apartment. Marcus, who believed in rational explanations, had become our ally. He admitted he could not explain the dripping or the moving chair. All three of us had felt the air go cold when the shadow moved. It was as if the building had been waiting for more than one person to notice it. The next day, Marcus searched records and found a news article about a water leak in the 1970s that had flooded the apartment line. The article mentioned that a maintenance worker drowned in the basement, unable to reach the door. There was no mention of anything supernatural, but the timing of the flooding matched the hour we heard the dripping. It was enough to make us shiver. Through all of this, Milo mostly dozed on the windowsill, blissfully unaware, but I kept checking on him, worried the noises might spook him. We considered leaving, but we had nowhere else to go, and a part of me was curious. We felt alone in this. Everyone else thought we were overreacting. When I told my mother about the drip, she said, "It's an old building. You're making more of it than it is." That dismissal made the phenomenon feel even more personal. The apartment wasn't just a place, it's like it had a life of its own. In the following weeks, the activity escalated. Cabinets opened by themselves while we were in another room. On one particular bad night, we heard footsteps pacing the hallway outside our bedroom. They went back and forth 3 times, then stopped outside the door. The doorknob turned slowly and then snapped back. We stayed frozen in bed, barely breathing. That was the moment when things went from weird to just plain terrifying. After that night we set up a plan. We decided that if the entity wanted our attention, we would give it our attention. We sat in the living room after midnight with candles burning, recorders on, and we asked aloud, "What do you want?" At first there was silence, then the familiar drip, then a whisper so clear we both heard it, "Help." The word was soft, almost pleading. Suddenly, the cabinets banged open in the kitchen, the lights flickered, and we could feel an unseen presence moving around us, like cold air pressing against our skin. I felt a hand brush my shoulder. Jess screamed. The candle blew out. That night broke something in us. We realized we weren't just investigating. Whatever it was seemed to be messing with us. The next morning, we packed a few bags and stayed at a friend's place. We told the landlord we had to leave because of a family emergency. I called a local historian and asked if anything else unusual had happened in the building. He told me about a woman who had lived in our unit 30 years ago who insisted the pipes talked to her. She eventually moved to a nursing home. The historian chuckled about crazy old ladies and their stories. I hung up feeling both validated and unnerved. We left the apartment a week later, lasting only 28 days. On the last night, as we carried the last box through the door, I heard the drip begin. Drip, pause, drip. It followed us into the hallway, fading as we descended the stairs. I never found out why us. We didn't do anything. We still don't know if it was something supernatural or if we were just losing it from lack of sleep, as my mom tells me. Sometimes I think about going back. A part of me wonders if we overreacted. Not knowing for sure is the worst part. The fact we let it win or how it's impact our lives now, feeling like we notice every small noise. Maybe the apartment didn't want to harm us. Maybe it just wanted to be heard. Yet, even now, long after we left, sometimes at night I wake up at 3:22 a.m. Then I lie there in the dark waiting for the next sound.
So let me ask you guys a question, right? Before we go on. If I told you that I basically have like documents or whatever, right? History saying that the house where you're at right now, had like a triple homicide, right? And that other people that had been in the area said that it was haunted, right? How do you think you would sleep tonight?
Horribly.
Yeah,
On
horribly.
edge.
Yeah.
I wouldn't sleep
Well,
there probably. I'd probably be like, yeah, no.
Most of us kind of said that if we did find out that the place where we were had like a history of people being killed and or haunted, it would kind of put that thought through our brain, right? And so these guys, they were already stressed, they were starting a new job, they were already not sleeping, and it's very easy to also kind of like feed off one another, right? Especially when there's like a doubt of something. It's like, oh, did you hear that? It's like, yeah, I think I heard it too, right? And the whole thing too, even on the video, if you guys watch enough of the ghost hunter shows, right? A lot of times it's like for some people it's like, oh yeah, that was super clear that it was my name. For others it's like, yeah, no, that's just that's just the wind or it's a weird sound, right? Um, however though, right? I think what does kind of really suck about all this is that at the end of the day, it did almost leave them traumatized, you know? It did leave them with their life just not being the same. It's like it took away their trust. Because, like
Yeah.
everybody can deal with a bunch of crap, but at the end of the day, right, you need to go to your own space to recuperate. And if you don't have that, then that's rough.
and I don't understand how some people, after going through such experiences, still claim to be non-believers. I heard something very interesting just about a couple of days ago that really brought my attention. I don't know if it's true or not, but it kind of makes a lot of sense that if it's your time to die, you are going to die either 2 months before your birthday or 2 months after your birthday. It's within those 4 months that if you die within those 4 months of your birthday, like 2 and 2, it was your time to go. And when people go and it's not their time, yes, a lot of those times they stay behind and they don't know what to do. The light just doesn't appear. And sometimes they're just looking for that help, you know.
So
And one way to call other people's attention would be to move things, to turn things on and off and try to call for, hey, help me here.
Yeah, and I do
And
think
there is ways to help them.
there is, and there are ways. So, I totally understand with this couple reaching out and seeing what it wants, and then realizing, yeah, no, like I don't blame them. Some people they do
No.
want to help, and others are just like, yeah, no, I'm out. and that's that's okay. Like, and maybe it was for the best that they did, and somebody else will probably move in there, and the ghost will probably try again. But I definitely didn't think the ghost was trying to do any harm. Especially one thing that I noticed is that the cat was not very reactive, which is actually a good thing. I think the cat did sense that the maintenance guy might be there, but wasn't a harmful, and which was why the cat might have not has reacted as much because there was no threat. So I definitely think that this couple was definitely fortunate in that their first experiencing of a haunting was something as kind of peaceful and just wanting to get the attention as this poor maintenance guy. And hopefully, next couple that comes along or somebody will come along will help the guy kind of pass on or complete whatever that unfinished business.
After going through something like that, it if that doesn't make you believe in the paranormal or the supernatural or there is something else after we die, I don't know what will. Sure, it's traumatizing for some people to go through those kinds of experiences, especially if they've never, I guess, in their lives, heard or have dealt with anything like that.
For what I've
It's
heard from stories too, and this is just something to keep in mind. Generally, you only see people resolve things like this in movies. In real
Yeah.
life, people either just move or they just kind of keep it to themselves and suffer.
Well, that's not always the case. I mean, I have heard a lot of stories where people just learn to live with the ghost
No,
because they
that's what I
just
mean.
don't have any other choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so interestingly enough, kind of like living with the ghost. So my college, my undergrad, our music building was supposedly haunted by the ghost of this woman called Suzanne Little. And she was like a big like music teacher there. So the whole, building, so the music hall was named after her.
That was Queens, right?
Yeah, Queen's University. And I was a music therapy major when I had this experience, and I was down in the basement a lot practicing music. And there was like a performance hall down in the basement. So there was like two performance hall. There was the one in the basement, and there was one on the top floor. And because I'm usually the only one down there in the basement, especially like late hours of the night, and I like to play on that piano. And there was this one time where I was playing on the piano, and then out of the corner of my eye, I saw the ruffles of like a blue skirt, which is what she wears in her portrait, and then it got really cold. And I was like, nope, I'm out. I like didn't even grab my books. I just took off, which thinking back on, I'm like, why did I do that? But I mean, the fear was real. I was like, nope, I'm out. I'm not going to be down here at night anymore. And so, I mean, but unfortunately, I had to reconcile with that, and so whenever time I was down there, I'd always had my door closed. Actually, I had it locked, and I would constantly see shadows going past my door. So, and I always joked saying that me and Suzanne Little were tight. We were buddies down there, but it was kind of like a thing where you just had to kind of coexist with it. But I learned that at night she tended to be more active, and I didn't stay there at night. So it's kind of that thing where again, it's like you just kind of respect their space and they respect you. Like I don't think she was harmful. I mean, I know there's been stories where it's like if you're being disrespectful down there, she will like if you're just pounding away on the piano or on mallets on the xylophone, she will slap the mallets out of your hand. She will slam the piano lid on your hands. Like so, but that was only other in intense situations. Other than that, she was just kind of like just roamed the hallways a little bit. So but no, I didn't try to make any other types of attempts of contact with her. I'm just like, you do your thing, I do my thing, and we're good.
Well, not to go too far. I don't know if you remember, Lalos, that's our the place where we used to work. Everybody would tell stories about seeing somebody walking through the one door and going through another after the corner of their eyes. Down in the Bark area, everybody would say they would see a guy walking through there, and and just walking off the corner of their eye.
Yeah, I do remember.
I used to see it. I used to see it all the time.
I don't remember feeling or seeing anything like that.
Yeah.
So,
I do
My
remember
mom
having to turn
did. You
around
did.
every once in a while. Like I thought somebody was there, but nobody was there.
Yeah, that feeling of somebody being there
It's
all the
so weird.
time. It was a interesting place, to be honest. But again, they were minding their own business. We were minding our own business, and like nobody messed with anybody.
Yeah.
Uh, Not to go too far either. My wife Vicky, I remember when I was dating her many years ago. That house where she lived in Mexico made a lot of noises. Like you could hear people walking down and up the stairs. And she very calmly would say, "Yeah, you hear them things all the time. I think it's a ghost." Just like that. And I was like, "Okay, see, you just some people just learn to live with it and
Mhm.
cope with it."
Um, I don't know. I'm also in the story. I am a little bit in the middle because
Mhm.
you think the cat not responding is a good sign. I think the cat not responding is the sign that they got locked in their own lack of sleep
Mhm.
and feeding each other paranoia. Also, the friend who was there, I think somehow unconsciously he just picked on the atmosphere that was already in the house and it feels a little bit like maybe something happened. I don't know, I wasn't there, but also maybe they just got really trapped into a series of consequences of moving, being stressed, not sleeping well, and actually just feeding each other with more paranoia that was strictly necessary. Um, it sucks that they ended up being traumatized.
mhm.
And it sucks that they couldn't trust their own houses anymore
Mhm.
because everyone needs a safe place
Exactly.
where they can be able to rest,
Yeah.
both physically and also mentally.
Mhm.
So,
Speaking of the cat, I mean, if our house was haunted, I don't think I would know because, you know, every time I hear a weird noise, I'm like, it's probably the cat. So, that could be its own episodes. Our
also,
cats
yeah,
are ghosts.
it could
You know?
also it could also possibly be all the cat's fault. So yeah, it could be behind the haunting and every other single accident, the keys moving, the bottle of water moving. Yeah, it could have been the cat, or maybe the cat was trying to rule the world, like cats usually do. And so yeah, we will never
All
know, I guess.
right, guys. Last thoughts before we end this.
Well, for everybody that's listening to this particular podcast, um, you got two options. You can either believe that it was a ghost, or you could go Gaia's side. It was all a bunch of paranoia from not sleeping well, stress, and everything. If you want to believe it's a ghost, it's a ghost. If you don't want to believe it's a ghost, it's not a ghost. Really, there's no way of telling, but
Yeah, I
whatever
think
makes you happier.
Yeah, I
Cameras.
think the one thing I would is that it's like, you're experiencing it, so what it is what you believe it is,
Hmm.
and that's that. Those are your feelings. They're valid, they're happening. I will say if you do notice it, be cautious when communicating.
Yeah.
Please don't play with Ouija boards. They are, I know that they're even made for kids because of the whole you can buy a Ouija board. Hasbro, yes, yep, yeah, Hasbro
What?
has
Yeah,
a,
you can buy
The
yeah,
the Barbie. They got the Barbie version Ouija
They
board.
do. They have a Barbie version of Ouija board. Yes. So please, please don't mess with the Ouija board just because it causes more problems than it's fun. But if you do feel like you need to communicate with the spirit in your house, just be kind of smart about it. Take safeguards. Reach out to someone or do some research. Use protection like salt, or if you're religious, prayer, kind of that. Just be cautious when reaching out to these spirits. That yes, maybe they want to be heard, but also there's a lot that play tricks on you too.
And I remember, rule of thumb, kid ghosts don't exist.
Those don't exist. That's right.
That's
But
our
no,
Gaia.
And
Last thoughts?
if you
no.
don't know why Larai just said not to play with Ouija boards, please watch The Exorcist.
Watch
Yeah.
any horror movie that has a Ouija board. It never ends. Never ends well.
Yeah, it never ends well.
Last thing I guess I'll say, right, to kind of wrap it up, is that, at the end of the day, no matter kind of like what you kind of believe or how it goes, right? Again, the whole thing here is try not to face it alone, right?
Mhm.
For any kind of belief, there is generally some kind of solution, right? If you're Catholic, we'll figure out a way of doing an exorcism. If you, I think more Native American, there's sometimes a ritual or dance or something that can go along with it, right? If you're just believing in the psychological, right, we can help you manage stress. It's just you don't have to always carry the pain. And that's kind of what this whole thing again is about. Is trying to let you know that there is a community and together we'll either figure it out or, we'll just argue about it.
Yeah, so if you have a story situation going on, please, share it with us. Send it to our email at realmscommune@gmail.com. Or you can share it here in the comments. Again, if you want to share a story, we'll gladly keep your name anonymous. You don't have to share. You don't even have to share that it's you who posted it. Just yeah, we'll be glad to read your story and kind of help you out if we can.
All right. Thanks you all for being
Please
here.
subscribe, click
Yes.
the notification little bell, and share it. Share it with your friends. We're trying to grow our community of believers, non-believers, and just if you want to find a friend, we're here for you.
All right.
All
Bye.
right. Bye.